All right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are live. Thank you for tuning in today. We are back. My name is Matt Morris. We are live right now on YouTube at Matt Morris TV. And of course, we are live right now on Rumble at Matt Morris TV as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in today, folks. Today, we have some amazing, great, phenomenal, frankly, amazing news to talk about. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Once again, thank you all very much for tuning in. Please make sure to like and subscribe here on Rumble, here on YouTube, everywhere. It really helps a lot. As I like to say, follow me everywhere other than in real life. Okay? So, folks, ladies and gentlemen, over the last couple days, the Trump administration has absolutely gone on the offense against the cartels, that is. And now they are seemingly hell-bent on making the cartels, a lot of the Latin American cartels, suffer for the damage that the cartels have been causing up here in America. The cartels are responsible for human trafficking, children, women, men, illegal alien workers, all types of terrible things, drug trafficking, fentanyl, methamphetamine. We're going to talk about methamphetamine trafficking a little bit later on in today's show. The Trump administration is now aggressively seizing cartel drugs they're smuggling into the country. Also, the precursor chemicals. A lot of the time, the cartels are smuggling chemicals in the country that then they can use to make drugs once they're already inside the country. So it's just a really terrible situation. But like I said, the Trump administration is pretty much declaring all-out war on these Latin American cartels. And so really, that is the central focal point of today's broadcast. Trump and his administration are going scorched earth on these guys, and thank God, finally, it is time that we have a president in the White House that actually gives a damn about this, because Americans have been losing their lives for decades, either getting butchered and murdered and killed or whatever, but also overdosing on terrible drugs like fentanyl. Last year, we lost over 100,000 generally young Americans that are accidentally overdosing. Something else is laced with the fentanyl. They don't even know the fentanyl is in the whatever they're taking. And so really catastrophic situation, heartbreaking. Finally, the Trump admin is cracking down on this. Okay, so I want to go ahead and get into the show with you guys. Take a look at this. I think a lot of you guys have seen this, but we're going to talk about this a lot today. This video footage broke. It went viral yesterday afternoon. This is a video of the Trump administration carrying out a precision targeted strike against a cartel boat in international waters off of the coast of Venezuela. This took place yesterday afternoon. Take a look at this. This video doesn't have any audio, but you can see there are actually 11 different cartel gang members, terrorist gang members on this boat. The boat is loaded up with drugs also. And we have the aerial footage here, and there it is. And bye-bye boat. So this precision strike carried out yesterday afternoon by the Trump administration, not only did it take out the boat, not only did it take out all of the drugs that they're trying to smuggle into the U.S., but also it took out 11 cartel foreign terrorist gang members, is what happened here. And so this has been the talk of town. Everybody has been talking about this. You know what? It's so cool. Why don't I go ahead and play it one more time? It won't even take that long. They're just, sailing. They're just going about their day. They think they are impervious. They think, what? Do you see the Coast Guard anywhere? Do you see any, U.S. naval vessels anywhere? Nope. I think the coast is clear. 3, 2, 1. And they're gone. And they're blown up. They thought they were clear. And there they go. As it would turn out, they were not clear. A precision U.S. drone was hovering overhead, and it blew the living hell out of them and their drugs. Thank God for that. Now, real quick, folks, we have a massive super chat over here in YouTube. This is from one of our viewers named Fletch Towel with the $20 super chat. I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Towel. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, take a look at this. Okay, I think a lot of people are wondering, how exactly does the United States military carry out targeted precision strikes like this? Well, take a look at this video here.
How did the U.S. strike Venezuelan cartels using military assets from the sea, land, and air? The American Navy uses specialized amphibious landing craft that act almost like miniature aircraft carriers, launching drones that can later be armed with Hellfire missiles. These missiles, guided by semi-active lasers or millimeter wave radar, turn the drones into highly lethal weapons. This technology allows them to lock onto and track targets with extreme accuracy, even those moving at speeds of 100 miles per hour. Both the US and Venezuela employ very different naval strategies. More details, all.
So pretty much what this means, this is state-of-the-art technology. Now the message has been sent. I think it's clear to say that the cartels have probably received the message. No longer are we going to tolerate these narco smuggling boats to just sail up into the U.S. somewhere, some random spot on the U.S. coast and deliver the payload of drugs or human trafficked children or women or whatever they're trying to smuggle in the U.S. Those days are over. Okay. Now, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth actually weighed in on this entire process, this event as it unfolded. Take a look at this. I'm going to turn up the audio here.
I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs. Last year, under the Biden administration, all 4 years, 100,000 Americans died from drug-related from drugs, from the use of drugs, many of which poured in from Central and South America through our southwest border. Now, we're sealing the border. But President Trump is willing to go on offense in ways that others have not been. And to send that clear signal to Tren de Aragua, Cartel del Sols, and others emanating from Venezuela, we're not going to allow this kind of activity. You're poisoning our people. We've got incredible assets, and they are gathering in the region. And so you want to try to traffic drugs? It's a new day. It's a different day. And so those 11 drug traffickers are no longer with us, sending a very clear signal that this is an activity the United States is not going to tolerate in our hemisphere.
Now, folks, we talked about this on yesterday's live broadcast. Right this very moment, there are 7 different U.S. naval vessels floating off of the coast of Venezuela. Venezuela is at the top of Latin America, the top country on the top of the continent. Now, we have 7 different U.S. naval vessels floating off the coast. There are missile interceptor vessels. There are, drone vehicles. They're totally kitted out. They've got everything they need to effectively identify and take out these drug smuggling cartel. Really, these are foreign terrorist organizations that are, the proper word is narco-terrorism. They are engaging in narco-terrorism. Not because, and the reason why we use that term narco-terrorism is because not only are these foreign terrorist cartel organizations trying to smuggle drugs into our country to make money. Yeah, they're trying to make money, but also they are explicitly, deliberately, intentionally trying to bring in the most deadly drugs possible, fentanyl, in order to kill as many Americans as possible. They want dead Americans. Yeah, they're going to make some money along the way, but really what do they want? They want dead young Americans. Enough is enough. During the Biden era, like Pete Hegseth here said, Secretary of Defense, maybe someday Secretary of War. Like he said, during the Biden era, we had over 100,000 young Americans dying every single year. And I want to really break down the way that works. It's terrible. But first, we have a, massive super chat over here in YouTube. This is from Rosa de Arment. Thank you very much. I see that's a $50 super chat. Thank you very much. Miss De Arment has to say, thank you for the great news coverage. You've become like a drug to my daily news habit. I do my best. I am just a guy. I don't have a multi-million-dollar studio with editors and script writers. I'm just as a one-man operation, but I do my best and I appreciate that. And I promise I will keep on showing up and giving it my all. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much, Rosa. I really, that's a big super chat. Thank you very much. Also, real quick, Michael Ewan Madden, he says, I appreciate your communication style, Brosephine. I think we can both agree that Corey Feldman is Andy Kaufman. Birds aren't real. Some people speculate that. Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's talk about, thank you, folks. And also shout out the guys down in Rumble, Matt Morris TV on YouTube and Rumble. We are live everywhere right now. Let's talk about how these fentanyl overdoses happen in the first place. Listen, You know, actually a great example, a terrible, sad example, is the son of the woman that used to own YouTube. The former CEO of YouTube, actually, Susan Wojcicki, or whatever her last name is, her son was 19 or 20 years old, went off to college. And, you know, kind of what do young adults do? They go to college, they experiment, they smoke marijuana, they do some party drug, whatever. I don't condone it. You shouldn't do it. I never did it. But this is kind of what young people tend to do. They go to college, they go to a party, they go to a club, and they try some new drug. And boom, guess what? That drug that they thought was, you know, generally benign, maybe not that big of a deal. Guess what? It was laced with a tiny bit of fentanyl that was smuggled in the country by the cartels. And now her son is dead. Maybe a lot of people didn't know that, but this happened to the son of the former YouTube CEO. Her name was Susan. Her son at age 20 accidentally, unintentionally overdosed on a fentanyl-laced drug in his first or second year of university. And so this has been happening to young Americans in mass, 100,000 of them a year, every year for the last 4 years. Now Trump is in the White House. It's come to an end. Now not only is the border closed, not only are we carrying out mass deportations, but now we are actually using our U.S. Navy, maybe the Air Force, to carry out targeted precision drone strikes on cartel drug smuggling vessels. So thank God things have changed. But I just want to be clear, a lot of these overdoses that were going on, it's not that these Americans overdosing on fentanyl, they weren't even knowingly taking fentanyl. They had no idea they were taking fentanyl. It was something else they were taking that was laced with fentanyl unbeknownst to them. It was an accident, but guess what? With fentanyl, all it takes is a little tiny 1 grain of sand worth of fentanyl, and guess what? Now you're dead. Terrible. This stuff is poison. And finally, President Trump, finally, we have a leader in this country that actually takes this stuff seriously. Thank God. And now, speaking about going on the offense against the cartels, against all of these drug smugglers that have been wreaking havoc, smuggling poison into this country, I want you all to take a listen to what Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to say about this boat attack, this one that we just watched. Take a look at what Marco Rubio had to say about this actually, it was earlier today, just a couple hours ago.
The United States has long.
It's a little bit quiet. I'm going to crank up the audio here. Okay, I think we're probably good now.
The United States has long, for many, many years, established intelligence that allow us to interdict and stop drug boats. And we did that. And it doesn't work. Interdiction doesn't work because these drug cartels, what they do is they know they're going to lose, 2% of their cargo. They bake it into their economics. What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them. The President of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
Under President Trump, those days are over.
And it wasn't a one-off. Rubio says strikes like these will happen again.
Strikes like these will happen again. What did Marco Rubio say? He's our Secretary of State. Okay, he's Trump's maybe number 2 guy right behind the vice president. Marco Rubio here, what he said was that President Trump has declared war against all of these narco-terrorist cartel organizations that have been smuggling all of these poisonous, terrible drugs and the precursor chemicals needed to make these drugs into the U.S. Trump has had enough. The border is closed. The deportations are underway. In the last 3, 4, 5, let me be exact here. In the last 5 months, we have seen 1.6 million illegal aliens leave the country. This is data from the Department of Labor, and this is data from the Department of Homeland Security. 1.6 million illegal aliens have left the country in the last 5 months. And so now deportations are underway. The border is secure. We turn our focus to the water, to the ocean, to the Gulf of America, as it is now known. The drugs are coming through the water on these boats. Guess what? As it would turn out, what is the best way to shut down this maritime drug trafficking? Well, just blow them up. We have a Navy. We have an Air Force. We spend a lot of money on the Air Force and the Navy. We all know that we do. Why don't we use it for something good? Why don't we use it to actually make our country safe again? Let's blow up their boats that are being used to smuggle all of these terrible drugs into the country. And so we're finally doing it. I think a lot of these cartels, these foreign terrorist organizations, they understand that, yeah, you know, for a long time, yeah, okay, they're sending these boats into the country loaded up with drugs. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 5% of the boats get apprehended. They get intercepted by the Coast Guard, whatever. But still 90 or 95% of them are making it into the country. And like Marco Rubio said, that is baked into their profit margin. They're a business, they're trying to make money. And they never expected that the United States would actually just start blowing up the boats. And that sends this image right here, this image right there, that sends a pretty strong message to the leadership structure of these cartels. You keep sending the boats and we are going to blow them up. Very strong message. However, the left-wing media, of course, can you folks guess what the left-wing media has been saying about this? About this boat, this narco-trafficking boat that the Trump administration blew up yesterday afternoon? Guess whose side they are taking? Guess whose side the progressive media is taking in this equation? They are taking the side of the narco foreign terrorist cartel traffickers. Okay? In fact, take a look at what a member of the left-wing media had to say to Vice President J.D. Vance just earlier today.
On the Venezuela vessel strike, what legal authority were you guys working under, and will there be an after report on the strike?
What legal authority are you guys working under? When you blew up this boat, what legal authority are you guys working under? Do you even have the authority to do this? Take a look to what Vice President Vance has to say.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be an after report. I mean, the legal authority, and I want to talk about these kids, is that there are people who are bringing literal terrorists who are bringing deadly drugs into our country, and the President of the United States ran on a promise of stopping this poison from coming into our country.
That's
Another
right.
question?
Another question? Any other dumb questions? Listen, President Trump campaigned on the promise to shut this down, and that is exactly what he's doing. Imagine being, I'm sorry to be rude, I'm going to be a little bit crass here. How freaking stupid do you have to be to say, what authority does the president, who is the commander-in-chief, he is the chief executive of the nation, what authority does President Trump have to blow up cartel terrorist drug smuggling boats that are smuggling illicit narcotics into our country? What authority does he have? How dumb, I'm sorry, how dumb are you? Now, real quick, we have a big super chat over here on YouTube. This is from the Gaming Murph. He says, thank you very much, by the way. I appreciate that a lot. Good to see you. Venezuela has the largest amount of oil in the world, more than the Middle East, alongside massive reserves of gold, diamonds, more than most of Africa. So if we go in, we better get that loot. This is true. Venezuela has more oil than anywhere else in the world. This is a fact. We know this to be true. They are too incompetent to do anything with it. Seriously, their leadership structure, their president, he's really a dictator, Nicolas Maduro, he is just too corrupt and too stupid to actually do anything with it. What he would rather do is just aid and abet and facilitate narco-terrorists in his country. That's what he would rather do than... Really, if the Venezuelans wanted, they could create a very lucrative, legitimate enterprise selling oil. But they just don't. They just don't do that. So you know what? That's the way that it is. Now, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Over here on the Rumble chat, there was a massive Rumble super chat from Ahmed. Ahmed, thank you very much. He says, this is $200, by the way. Let's just get that out there. Thank you very much, Ahmed. Thank you. May God bless the Morse Force with many happy years in your new home. I have to say real quick, I have never once pushed the term Morse Force, but you guys keep saying it. Everybody on YouTube and Rumble, you guys keep on saying Morse Force. You know what? All right, I accept it. Okay, you guys win. I accept it. Welcome to the Morse Force. You're tuning into the Morse Force. Let's go. I am all in on the Morse Force. You guys seem to like it. Let's go. Thank you very much. That is a massive super chat down in Rumble. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Ahmed, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, listen, this is a little bit more of a comprehensive breakdown that took place on Fox News talking about this precision strike on this narco-terrorist drug smuggling boat. So I want to go ahead and play this clip for you guys. I think it's going to add a lot more context to really what is going on here on Trump's war. He has declared war on these narco-terrorist cartel organizations. Let's go ahead and take a look.
But Rubio says no mas.
Hold up, wait a minute. This is playing at 2 times speed randomly, and it's a little bit quiet. Okay, here we go. Try again.
No. But Rubio says no mas.
Will you act on Venezuelan soil against the Maduro regime?
Well, this is a counter-drug operation. We're going to take on drug cartels wherever they are and wherever they're operating against the interests of the United States.
Former U.S. Army Special Forces and president of WorldStrat, Jim Hansen.
All right.
Jim, did you hear the Secretary of State not take strikes inside of Venezuela off the table?
I don't think anything's off the table. And I think anybody who thought that when President Trump designated the drug cartels as terrorists, he was kidding, can take a look at that oil slick in the Caribbean Sea and see what they found out.
What do you want to bet? All of the fish beneath this boat had the craziest night of their life. Imagine you're a fish swimming through the Gulf of America, and suddenly what is filtering down in the water? Fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, I don't even know what. Those fish were crazy in the Gulf of America. Okay, I'm sorry.
This is a message to the cartels and to state leaders who coddle them and allow them to operate that that's no longer a free ride to make money bringing death into the United States.
How robust is this operation going to be?
I think as robust as they need to. I think, it's fun for Maduro and other people to say, oh, we've got Marines, we've got IEDs, we've got these things. They don't have anything that can stand up to the military might of the United States.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good start. There will probably be some more object lessons, maybe a drone strike on a lab, something like that. And
take a look. These are these cartel terrorist paramilitary organizations. We have a couple pictures of them right here. I just want to pause. These guys think they're real tough until they look up and see a Predator drone. They're driving around here in their, looks like a Ford pickup truck, I'm not sure. They're kitted out. They've got their body armor. These are legitimate Latin American terrorist paramilitary organizations. They are. They're independent militaries. Maybe you could call them militias. I don't know. They're terrorist groups is what they are. They think they are real tough until they look up and they see the Predator drone, or they look up and they see, God forbid, what's that? Is that a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber? By the time they realize, they are dead.
And they're pretty quickly going to find out that we're not going to put up with them making billions of dollars doing human trafficking and killing our own citizens without a very robust response.
Right. And so you have drugs pouring into the country. People are dying. You have Chevron getting screwed around with. And you have a guy down there that's flirting with Putin, flirting with Xi in China. Do you think this kind of operation, if it goes forward, has the support of the American people?
Yes.
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, the American people are sick of seeing these drug traffickers and these cartels destroying our country with no consequences. And if any of these people down in South America think they're going to make friends in our hemisphere with the Russians and the Chinese or anybody else, they're going to find out that President Trump is back in charge. America's on top. That's not going to play.
Is there a risk of counterstrikes inside U.S. proper from the cartels?
There is, and the idea, asymmetric warfare is the Achilles heel of the United States. We are one giant soft target here inside the United States. However, payback can be a medevac if they try something like that. You go ahead and hit us here, and you want to see some holy hell unleashed wherever you're operating.
That is true.
I don't think they do it more than once.
Yeah, you're right about that. Jim.
That is true. Now, folks, speaking of the potential, the capacity for a counterstrike, a counterattack on American soil, the cartels get pissed off. They're mad that Trump is blowing up their drug smuggling boats. What if they try to do something on U.S. soil? Listen, pay attention. Keep in mind, okay, the border is now closed. The inflow of these people into our country has been reduced to zero. None of them are entering the country anymore. Deportations are underway. Listen, really one of the big, most fundamental problems with all of this illegal immigration, it's an illegal invasion, really is what it is. Yeah, it messes up the economy. Yeah, it messes up the housing market. Yeah, there's all this terrible stuff. But one of the big problems is that we haven't vetted these people. We don't know if these illegal aliens that are coming in the country Maybe they are just trying to find a better economic circumstance and get a job, make some money here in the country. Still, we don't want them, but that's like the least bad scenario. The most bad scenario with illegal aliens, illegal immigrants sneaking into the country, is that they are potentially members of foreign cartel terrorist organizations. Maybe they are sleeper cells, so to speak. Maybe the second Nicolas Maduro or some other cartel terrorist leader snaps his fingers or gives the go-ahead. He says, listen, the operation is a go. He gives them the green light. Maybe they do start doing terrible things on U.S. soil. And so it must be stated, every single deportation, every single one that President Trump and ICE and DHS are able to execute, every single deportation that takes place, that is one less potential terrorist, cartel gang member in this country. It is, of course, we spend a lot of time talking about the economics and the job market and the housing market and all of these other aspects of illegal immigration. These are bad things. We've had enough. We don't want them here anymore. Well, really, we never wanted them here, and now we're getting rid of them. But keep in mind, okay, every single one of these illegal aliens is a potential terrorist. It is imperative that we get rid of every single one of them, because none of them have been properly vetted. They all have to go. Okay, maybe if they're good people, as President Trump said in 2015, he said, some of whom I assume are good people. Remember, it's the iconic Trump quote. He said that some of them I assume are good people. You know what? Okay, maybe some of them are. Well, you got to leave the country and then come back in legally someday, maybe after we have properly vetted you. But by nature of being here illegally, we have no idea if you are a good one or a bad one or a whatever, okay? All of them have to go, because all of them, frankly, are national security threats until they have been properly vetted. That's imperative. Now, another thing that they spoke about here in this clip that we just watched was the potential for the Trump administration to start carrying out precision strikes, just like we saw in this video today we're talking about, not just in international waters, but also directly on land in foreign countries. So let's use our imagination here. Might we see the Trump administration carrying out precision targeted drone strikes or aerial strikes on cartel operations, cartel compounds deep in the Venezuelan jungle or deep in the Mexican jungle? I want to ask you all, would you folks in the Rumble live chat and in the YouTube live chat, would you be in favor of the Trump administration using an unmanned drone to drop a couple bombs on a cartel drug manufacturing facility in the Mexican rainforest? I'm asking yes or no, because in my opinion, yes, we need to shut this down. Listen, these countries like Mexico, these countries like Venezuela, God knows what other countries, they are either complicit in what's going on, or they are just unable to shut down the cartel activity. So either they're on board with it, or they just have no capacity to shut it down. If they do want to shut it down, they can't do it. Listen, their problem has now become our problem. Their lack of action, their inaction has become a problem for us here in America. Americans are dying, okay? We're talking about 100,000 plus overdoses every single year because of Mexico's inability to solve this, because of Venezuela's inability to solve this. I mean, very clearly, Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, his regime is directly complicit. They are on board with it. Nicolas Maduro has been designated as a narco-terrorist himself, okay? Let alone a dictator. So, listen, you guys know I'm kind of old school. America, we had a foreign policy doctrine for the first 175 years of our country's, of our national history. We tossed this out the window around the time World War I broke out. But listen, what was this doctrine, our guiding principle with our foreign policy? Our foreign policy was called the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine, which successfully guided our country for, like I said, about 170 years, was, listen, the Western Hemisphere, this is our hemisphere. Western Hemisphere control of the Western Hemisphere is imperative for American national security. That's from North Pole to South Pole. That's from the top of Canada all the way down to the bottom of Argentina. This is our domain, not the entire world. This is our domain. We are not going to let communists, like we saw in Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis, We are not going to allow China, like what they were trying to do in Panama and up in Canada, still to this day in Greenland. We are not going to allow these foreign adversarial nations, let alone a bunch of narco-terrorists, distribute poison that is killing hundreds of thousands of Americans into our country. Okay? So if you want to talk about making the Western Hemisphere safe, this is about as traditional Americana foreign policy as you can get. This is the foreign policy that America followed and pursued for the first 170 years. And in the absence of this pursuit of this foreign policy, what's happened? Our hemisphere has become incredibly hostile. Everything south of our border. Let's be real. Let's be adults here for a second. Quite literally, everything south of the U.S.-Mexico border is operated and maintained by cartel terrorist organizations. Mexico is effectively a narco-terrorist state. Let's just cut the bullshit. Mexico is pretty much controlled by the cartels. Venezuela, obviously. Almost every other single Latin American country pretty much is as well. This is a problem, okay? So that's kind of where I stand. Now, speaking about this entire situation and all of these drugs that are being smuggled into our country, Janine Pinheiro, who is now... what is her position? She's a U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia, appointed by President Trump about a month and a half ago. So she's very highly ranked now in our government. I want you to play this video. She says, you are looking at the largest seizure of precursor chemicals used to manufacture methamphetamine in U.S. history. We just earlier today, the U.S. government apprehended the single largest shipment of methamphetamine precursor chemicals that were inbound to the U.S. ever. This is the single biggest drug bust ever. Take a look at this. Turn up the audio a little bit. This is going to blow your mind. Then we're going to read an article about this, really breaking down the entire situation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Judge Janine, and I am in Houston, Texas, and I am surrounded by 1,300 barrels of precursors that are being used to make methamphetamines. These precursors were seized as a result of work by my office in Washington, D.C., along with Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol. These 1,300 barrels were shipped from Shanghai, China, to Mexico.
China.
We intercepted these precursors on the high seas, and now the Sinaloa cartel will not be able to use them to make methamphetamines. And the bottom line is this: whenever there is an effort on the part of foreign terrorist organizations to create drugs that are killing Americans, we will seize them, whether it's on the high seas or whether it's in the country or a foreign country. And by the way, it's going to take 24 18-wheelers to take all of these containers and put them in a secure storage facility. And that's what we're doing in D.C., but we're doing it in Houston today. And you never know where we're going to be tomorrow.
You never know. Now, folks, once again, a little bit of a comparison here. Keep in mind, during the Biden administration, this entire shipment, it takes 26 semi trucks to move this stuff from point A to point B. This stuff was just literally flooding into the country totally unimpeded. With these cartels, she mentions the Sinaloa cartel specifically, I believe, they were just acting for 4 years with complete and total impunity. They were just walking back and forth across the border. Man, I bet the cartels made so much money during the Biden era. I would love to know. How much money did the cartels make when Joe Biden was in office? Literally hundreds of billions of dollars. Just an unfathomable amount of money. Just insane. Now, as you can see, hey, biggest drug bust in U.S. history. Let's take a look at some super chats real quick. We have a new one pop up right now. Eric Heffelfinger, he says, I don't want war, but if we were to go to it over the drug trade, I'd understand, because what they are doing to us is chemical warfare. You know, I believe, gosh, I'm trying to remember. And by the way, Eric, I'm with you. I believe it was Pat Buchanan. I was reading a book of his a couple months ago. Pat Buchanan said in the 1990s that American foreign policy ought to operate like a rattlesnake. Okay, we are coiled. We don't want to strike. We don't want to attack. And we're giving ample warning not to mess with us. Our tail is rattling as a rattlesnake does. Only when absolutely provoked and pushed to the limit does the rattlesnake attack and strike. And when that strike finally happens, after all the warning and after all the messaging, when that strike finally does take place, it is a fatal critical strike. Okay, if you're going to take your shot, you best make sure it doesn't miss. And so this, I think, I generally agree. I think that's a reasonable foreign policy, right? Now, and by the way, I want to say thank you very much. We need to be like a rattlesnake in that regard, if you can go with the analogy. Thank you very much. Now, there was an article that I want to read with you guys. It's not too long, really breaking down the details of this massive drug bust. By the way, what did she say? What did Janine Pirro say? She said that these precursor chemicals for this methamphetamine came out of Shanghai, China. Curious. Let's quickly talk about China real fast. I mentioned this in the video that I made earlier today. Maybe you guys have seen this. China right now, the Trump administration has imposed a 30% tariff on China. It is active at this very moment, 30%. Let's break down, how did we arrive at that 30% flat tariff rate on every single thing coming out of China? Well, it actually is a 10% flat tariff rate on every single thing coming out of China. The other 20% is a 20% tariff that Trump has imposed on China because they have refused to crack down on the export of precursor chemicals used to make drugs like this. So if China wanted to remove this 20% tariff that Trump has imposed on the country, on China that is, all they would have to do is crack down on the exportation of these precursor chemicals. China has said, we don't really care. No, actually, Trump, we're going to go ahead and continue exporting these precursor chemicals. We would rather deal with a 20% flat tariff on everything, in addition to the 10% tariff, than stop exporting these deadly chemicals to Latin America directly to the Sinaloa cartel, as well as various other cartels, foreign terrorist organizations. So China knows exactly what they are doing. China is totally complicit. I've been saying this a lot. I feel like a lot of people don't get this. China is our enemy. China is an adversarial nation. China is perhaps the single most threatening nation on the face of the world as far as we here in America are concerned. A lot of people, they look to Iran. They might look to Russia. I don't know where else. But listen, China is a big problem. And if you stop and think about it, every single thing that President Trump is doing, almost everything he's doing, is focused on countering what China is doing. Why is Trump focused on the Panama Canal? Because of China. Why is Trump focused on Canada? Because of China. Why is Trump building a Golden Dome missile defense system? Because of China. Why is Trump cracking down on all these drugs being imported into the country? It goes back to China. Why is Trump focused on Greenland? It's because of China. Okay? China is our enemy. I don't know if you can go ahead and call it a Cold War. I don't know what you would call it, but listen, this is, at a minimum, you can say the least, China is a very incredibly adversarial nation. There's no doubt about that. They are our single biggest enemy, hostile nation on the face of the planet. Now, let's go ahead and read through this article. Pirro strikes blow to narco trafficking. Historic seizure, the single biggest seizure of precursor chemicals, exposes China cartel drug route. And once again, China is doing nothing to stop this. In fact, they're not only not doing nothing, they are facilitating. They are on board with it. China. Out of Pasadena, Texas, United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, announced the single most significant federal seizure of drug precursor chemicals by federal law enforcement authorities in U.S. history during a Wednesday press conference in Pasadena, Texas. The precursor chemicals seized in two separate maritime interdictions were headed from China to Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. Imagine that. China knows exactly what they are doing. U.S. Attorney Pirro indicated the chemicals included 363,000 pounds of benzyl alcohol, which can be used to produce benzyl chloride, A DEA list 2 chemical restricted in many countries because it can be used to produce amphetamine-type narcotics illegally. In addition to the vast quantity of benzyl alcohol seized during the operation, 334,000 pounds of N-methylformamide, a chemical included on the DEA special surveillance list of laboratory supplies used in the manufacture of controlled substances, was also interdicted. This is just an absolutely ungodly amount. I mean, you guys already saw this, but just take a look at this. She said it would take 26 semi-trucks to move this stuff from point A to point B. Speaking to the devastation caused by the supply line of chemicals used to produce the deadly illegal narcotics headed to the U.S., Pirro told reporters every day tons of chemicals that are used to create synthetic drugs like methamphetamine and fentanyl are shipped from China to Mexico in China's undeclared war against America and her citizens. Every day in funeral homes across this country, we see the tragic consequences of what can happen in this undeclared war. I mean, they are using this word war. Are they improperly using the word war? China, let's just be real. China is directly causing the death of 100,000 Americans a year. Or at least they were during the Biden era. And of course, they were working with the Latin American cartels, Sinaloa, for instance. Tren de Aragua was involved in this. But it's China, it's the cartels, 100,000 Americans a year. How just absolutely insane. And they are doing it deliberately. They are doing it knowingly. They are doing it intentionally. Let's keep on reading. Pirro told reporters the massive cache of precursor chemicals could be used to produce 420,000 pounds of methamphetamine by the Sinaloa cartel. The laboratories operated by the cartel are currently capable of producing a ton of methamphetamine per week. A ton? Pirro valued the methamphetamines that may have been manufactured with the chemicals at $569 million. That's a lot of dollars. To say the least, that sure is a lot of dollars in the Houston area. And by the way, listen, all of these problems are connected. You know, China is manufacturing the precursor chemicals or sending them across the Pacific to the Sinaloa and the Tren de Aragua, all of these Latin American cartels. The open border facilitated the smuggling of these chemicals and of these drugs into the country. Oftentimes, who is actually on a street level, who is dealing the drugs in the country, in the United States? It's illegal alien drug dealers. Okay? So the consequences, the negative ramifications of having an open border, of, you know, not deporting these people, of turning a blind eye to this illegal alien invasion, to sanctuary city, to far left, radically progressive sanctuary city policies, all of these problems are directly interwoven. They cascade. One problem leads into another problem. And, you know, like I said, thank God somebody is finally doing something about this, because the Democrats, the far left radical progressives, they were just asleep at the wheel. I mean, no, it's not even fair to say that. They weren't asleep. It's not as if they were blind to all of this happening. They were directly complicit. They knew what was happening. The far left radical progressives, the Democrats, they knew this stuff was happening, and they chose. There's a decision to be made. They chose to do nothing about this. They turned a blind eye to hundreds of thousands of Americans losing their lives to this type of stuff. And I'm not even, of course, beyond the overdoses, there's all of this other terrible stuff that happens as a consequence of open border policy and lack of deportations. Just a really reprehensible anti-American situation. U.S. Attorney Pirro was joined by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, acting director. Okay, so she was joined by all of these senior ranking officials, CBP, DEA, DHS, FBI. The seizure that we just talked about of all of these precursor chemicals was a collaboration between the federal agencies represented at the press conference and the United States Department of Defense. The shipments, according to Pirro, originated in Shanghai, China, and were to be received by the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico now a foreign terrorist organization as designated by the Trump administration. I'll tell you what, the president of Mexico, El Presidente Claudia Sheinbaum, you guys have seen her. She has just proven to be totally incapable of shutting down these cartels. In fact, it seems like she is actually directly aiding and abetting these cartels. As such, is the president of Mexico a co-collaborator working alongside? I mean, listen, hey, if you are the president of a country and you are deliberately turning a blind eye to terrorists that are operating inside of your country, and not just a couple of them, but like tens of thousands, you have dozens of individual terrorist organizations operating in your country. Listen, I think you are complicit. At that point, you are complicit in what is going on. El Presidente Claudia Sheinbaum. I think there's a little bit of a problem here. The cartel queen, somebody says, might be the case. A lot of people call her a puppet of the cartels. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia obtained the seizure warrant that provided the legal authority to seize the chemicals because the Trump administration designated the Sinaloa cartel as a foreign terrorist organization on January 20th, 2025. That's just like 2 weeks after getting into office. The designation provided federal prosecutors in the district the authority needed to execute the seizure under the terrorism forfeiture provision. Good. Yeah. We cannot let this stuff get into the country. One dead American is one too many dead Americans. Let's put it that way. The two maritime seizures occurred in international waters just off the coast of Panama. Ah, Panama. Curious, huh? It's almost as if China was using their position over the Panama Canal as a means with which to import drugs with total impunity. Huh, curious. Maybe that has something to do with why Trump has now retaken the Panama Canal, which, by the way, we built. By the way, it was Americans that lost their lives building that canal. That canal is ours. This is one of the biggest failures in American foreign policy ever. President Carter, who a lot of people say is the second worst president in American history, right behind Biden, Carter just gave away the Panama Canal, which we built. Thousands, I believe thousands, of Americans lost their lives digging that canal. This was a monumental project that was completed in the early 1900s, and he just gave it away. Total incompetence. Total nincompoop. Let's keep reading. The two maritime seizures occurred in international waters just off the coast of the Panama Canal and consisted of 1,300 barrels of the two dangerous chemicals, emphasizing the enormity of the seizure. Pirro told reporters it would take 24 semi-tractor trailers to move the barrels to a secure location for storage. Now, I've looked into how China is doing this. China will have these unregistered, they're kind of ghost ships. They'll turn off their transponders. They won't, wave the Chinese flag. They're coming out of China, and this one was coming out of Shanghai, but they are, for all intents and purposes, they are ghost ships. They are unidentifiable. They do not respond to radio transmissions, and it's because they're trying to operate under the radar, sneak across the Pacific to deliver their illicit payload, in this case, methamphetamine precursor chemicals, down to Latin America, Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel, at which point they can cook up their drugs and try to smuggle them across the border. And so China is deliberately doing this. China knows what they're doing. China is, like I said, perhaps the most hostile nation in the country as far as us Americans are concerned. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, from shutting down the border, from cracking down on massive drug busts like this, precursor chemicals, carrying out deportations, dare I say mass deportations, to blowing up cartel terrorist drug smuggling boats off the coast of Venezuela, in the Gulf of America, the Trump administration is taking these issues seriously. So seriously now, in fact, that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, like we saw a moment ago, has actually said that, yeah, we have declared war on the cartels. Yes, America is at war, and we are at war with the cartels. And you know what? As an American, this is a war that I can get behind. You guys know, I've been very public about this. Americans getting involved again in the Middle East, No. Boots on the ground? No. In the Middle East? No. Regime change in Iran? No. Sending more young Americans to the desert in Afghanistan? No. However, that stuff, no. However, you want to talk about a justifiable, in my opinion, military use of our military? Let's talk about blowing up cartel boats. Let's talk about blowing up drug smugglers. Let's talk about bombing cartel compounds in Latin America. That, I think, pretty much everybody can get behind. Can we all agree? Listen, this is something that should have happened a long time ago. It is a justifiable use of our military. You want to talk about a direct threat to America? This stuff, you're looking at it. You are looking at a direct threat to America. I am sure that this boat right here that the Trump administration blew up yesterday afternoon had enough drugs on this to kill God knows how many thousands, tens of thousands of Americans, should it have successfully delivered its payload here in America. Shut it down. This is what a direct threat to America looks like, and a direct threat to the Americans in America looks like. So thank God we are shutting this down. Folks, this is going to be a wrap up for the show. Like I said, we've got good news today. The Trump administration is absolutely cracking down. God bless him, and God bless everybody in the audience here today. Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. I want to say real quick, this is my second day back. I was gone for 7 days. We were moving from Washington up to Idaho. Man, I'm so happy. Life is very good. I'm very lucky to have such a great community on Rumble. Tuning in, Matt Morse TV on Rumble. Check it out. Matt Morse TV on Rumble. Matt Morse TV on YouTube. Check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be a wrap for today's show. Thank you all very much. Real quick, one final request of the day. If you have not already followed me on X, Matt Morse TV on X, drop a follow. Thank you all very much. These days, I always try to take 1 day off a week. As it would turn out, I think I just can't do it. So now we're doing videos and live broadcasts 7 days a week. We're here every day, Matt Morse TV, YouTube, Rumble, everywhere. So hey, listen, keep on coming back. If you guys keep on coming back, I'll keep going live and putting out content and covering the news. Thank you all very much. Have a great afternoon. Have a great evening. Have a great tomorrow morning. And tomorrow afternoon, we will be back with more coverage of whatever is going on. Thank you all very much for tuning in today. Thank you all. God bless. And I will see all